An anamorphic image just looks like a movie to me. The flares, the wide frame, the dreamy oval bokeh that makes everything feel expensive. I love it. And it's basically a format that was popularized because studios needed to compete with television. So we're gonna hit a bit of that history, but mostly we're gonna be looking at what the squeeze actually does to your image and why true anamorphic gives you something a crop on your 16:9 frame just can't. And stick around to the end, there's something I wanna tell you about that will get you to finally finish your short film and pitch a feature to people who've actually made them. Here's a basic shot on a spherical lens, which spherical is what most things are shot on. Nothing different happening, the world looks like the world. Now here's that same setup on anamorphic. It's stretched vertically with the lens cramming in a wide image to fill my sensor, so we need to unsqueeze this in post. In Premiere, I'll just right click, go to Modify, Interpret Footage, then under Pixel Aspect Ratio, I'll select Conform to 1.5 since I'm using these DZO Arcana anamorphic lenses, which are a 1.5 times squeeze. Now with the image stretched out, we have this wide cinematic frame that just feels like a movie. And that's the magic of an anamorphic lens for me. The character it brings, the way it makes you feel like it's another world. For me personally, I want my lens to make my image feel like I'm looking through some magic orb to another dimension, not a window to my backyard. Of course, not all the time, it does depend on what I'm making, but when it comes to narrative work, that's usually the case for me personally. But what's giving it that feeling? Anamorphic didn't come to film because somebody wanted sexy flares. In the 1950s, TV was killing theaters and studios needed a bigger, wider image without inventing a whole new film format.
This is Cinerama.
So they used this lens trick to squeeze a super wide picture onto the same 35mm frame, then unsqueezed it in the theater with another specialized lens. All the flares, bokeh, and distortion we're obsessed with now are just side effects of that hack.
We got it.
Well, let's look at the tasty treats anamorphic is giving my image. And of course, not all anamorphics are the same. Some have more character, some have less, imperfections or not, warping or not, flares or barely. And we're looking at just one specific set today, which again, these are the DZO Arcana lenses. DZO sent these and are our partner today, but as always, I don't say anything I don't 100% stand behind, and I was very excited to partner with them on this because I love these lenses a lot. I have the 32, 45, and 75mm lenses, and like I said before, these are 1.5 squeeze anamorphic lenses, but they have a 1.33 elliptical aperture design, which gives the effect of a 2 times anamorphic lens, mostly in the bokeh. And I'm going to be putting them up against my DZO spherical cinema lenses so we can see those differences clearly. The first and most obvious thing anamorphic is giving you is that deliciously wide frame. And yes, you can take a spherical shot and crop, giving you the same composition, but none of the character. For instance, here's the shot with my spherical 40mm lens, filmed in 16:9, then cropped to 2.35. And here's that same shot with my 45mm anamorphic lens. These Arcana lenses, again, are that 1.5 squeeze, so I'm shooting open gate on my Pixis 12K, which is basically a 3.2 sensor, just a hair wider. So when we de-squeeze, that gives us a frame of around 2.29 to 1. So I'll adjust my spherical crop to match, and we can see the difference in these lenses from character alone. The most obvious and immediate difference between these two is the extra real estate I'm getting on the sides here. So while my spherical lens is 5mm wider on the vertical, the 45mm anamorphic lens is around a 30mm equivalent on the horizontal field of view with the 1.5 squeeze on it. So I can move in and get the same framing while feeling the world around him a lot more. And interestingly, if we look at another shot like this one here, I have the 32mm Arcana anamorphic and the 21mm spherical. And again, since I have that squeeze on the anamorphic, the horizontal field of view is around 21mm for that 32mm. So now my horizontal framing is matching, and I'll crop and zoom a touch to make the rest match as well. And you can see there's a lot of difference between the lenses here. How they're handling light and bokeh, the anamorphic has more of a vignette, and to me, the anamorphic is feeling more three-dimensional overall. And this is the case when I compare my 75mm anamorphic to the 40 spherical as well, or the 32 anamorphic to the 40 spherical. Each time I'm feeling the subject more separated, and that's partly due to the vignetting and distortion I'm getting in these lenses. With a spherical lens, you're often getting straight lines, like the edge of a wall or door frame, but with the anamorphic, we're starting to bend the world on the edges, and we can see that most clearly with the widest anamorphic lens in the kit. So let's look at this shot here with the fence in the back on a spherical lens. We have all straight lines, but when I switch to my 32mm anamorphic, you can see how much distortion we're getting with the edges bowing out. Of course, like any set of lenses, this varies across the focal lengths, and we have it most pronounced on the widest lens, but as we move to the 45, it drops quite a bit, and the 75mm is very slight. And like we talked about before, the 32mm anamorphic is that 21mm equivalent horizontally, so it is feeling more like a wide angle lens, like you have with this 21 spherical. So as we move to the edges of both, you are getting distortion with either one. And like I just showed, distortion isn't only in anamorphic lenses, but most anamorphic lenses do tend to have distortion that I find extra pleasing. It's one of the main ingredients of what I keep calling character. I tend to get bummed out when an anamorphic lens has very little of it, since again, that distortion is a big reason why I'm getting that shift in how the space is rendered. And often it's feeling more separated and alive for me, and I'm personally loving the distortion in these Arcana lenses. Next, we're going to talk bokeh, but before we do, as promised, let's talk about pitching your feature idea. Another partner of ours, Film Fest KNOX, has an international film festival in Knoxville, Tennessee, November 12th through the 15th, and it's legit. Movie Maker named it one of the 50 festivals actually worth the entry fee. But what I want you to know about it is the elevator pitch. You and your team make an 8-minute proof of concept short film plus a 1-minute pitch for a feature. So right out of the gate, it forces you to do the hardest part, make the idea real. Then an independent committee picks the top 8. Those 8 get screened in front of a live audience and a jury of working industry pros. Then you pitch your feature live on the spot and take their questions. Top 3 teams win cash and get into the elevator development lab run this year by 10 Acre Films, producers behind over 20 features, 10 of them at Sundance, including Sorry to Bother You. And let's be real, the odds of you getting a feature out of this are as slim as they are when you have an agent and you're pitching features out in Hollywood. I know that world firsthand, but that's not the reason here for me. The real value to something like this, in my opinion, is the community that you're taking part in, the motivation it gives you, and the practice you'll be getting pitching it. If there's one thing I've learned over the last 8 years of pitching, it's that the friendships you make will drive you closer to your goal than anything else. So that's the real pitch, and it doesn't hurt that you get on the radar of people who can actually help make it happen. Registration closes July 16th. It's $80 per team. It includes a full festival pass, and your finished film is due October 17th. So grab a couple friends, pick that idea that won't leave you alone, and go for it. Link in the description or head to filmfestknox.com. One of the absolute best aspects of an anamorphic lens is the bokeh, and not just in the very obvious places like with the points of light here, but in every shot. Compared to a spherical lens, you get this streaking, whirly blur that feels cinematic versus a blooming blur that feels more photographic, at least to me. Both are great, just different. Again, that's going to be the most pronounced in points of light like this here. In the spherical, we're getting circles of light, while in the anamorphic, it's stretching those points to that oval shape. And if we look at it in things like leaves and branches like you see here, you can see how much it's doing to the edges to really infuse that character. You're also getting some lens breathing here as you rack focus, which feels very classic cinema to me. Probably the most famous aspect of an anamorphic lens is the lens flare, which is funny because while I do love lens flares, it's not at the top of my list of why I love anamorphics. When people talk about lens flares now, they think J.J. Abrams, but the films of the 80s and 90s have some of the best examples of lens flares overall, in my opinion. And we are getting great flares with these lenses. The Arcana have a white coating design, which means the flare will take on the color of the light source. This is a big plus since it feels more natural to the image overall, and that flare is going to vary across the size of the source as well as where it's positioned in frame. As we move the light around, we're getting a lot of life in the flare moving along with it. And as we adjust our T-stop, the flare is going to look a bit different as well. And we can also ping the lens from outside of the frame to get different looks like you see here for all kinds of styles. And you can see how the flare is moving across the glass on the front here as well, which doesn't matter, but it looks cool. Another perk, especially with the Arcana's 1.5 squeeze, is that we can shift between between aspect ratios in camera to adjust how wide our final frame is. With 3.2, you're landing at around 2.2 to 1. If I switch to 16.9, that same 1.5 squeeze takes us to around 2.66 to 1. 17.9 on my Pixus takes us to 2.8 to 1. And if I go to 6.5, I'm landing around 1.8 to 1, which is basically 16.9. So if you want, you can stay with a 16.9 frame while still getting all the character of the anamorphic lens. Which for me, this is perfect for talking head type shots like we're doing right here. It just feels elevated to me. It stands out because people aren't used to seeing anamorphics this way. I also have these adapters here, so I can go PL to RF and pop these on my Canon C50, which we will be talking about soon. Or even better, I can use an adapter to pair these with my Ronin 4D. Since these lenses are so small and light, there's no issues with balancing on the head here. And now I'm getting the smoothness of the 4D with the epic look of the anamorphic. And with my LiDAR on here, I'll have autofocus as well, giving maybe the coolest setup that we've used on the show yet. Overall, these lenses are cleanish, budget anamorphics, but thankfully not too clean that they are void of character, since as you can see, they are oozing with it. They're also sharp even when wide open, but without that digital harshness, so they're helping curb that clinical look overall too, which is another big plus to anamorphic lenses. We have links to these in the notes below, and if you use our link, you can get 5% off these Arcana lenses or any other lenses on the DZO store. And what do you think? Are you a fan of anamorphics like me, or do you prefer the look of spherical? Let us know in the comments below. And if you haven't seen it, we have a whole new show and channel called Page One, where Justin breaks down the scripts of different films. We just released a new episode on Take Shelter, but there's also episodes on The Prestige, Monsters Inc., and Nosferatu. So check all that in the links as well. And until next time, don't forget to write, shoot, edit, repeat.